Hi everyone, my name is Yakiv and I was born and raised in Ukraine, and that's where the majority of my family is currently located. Most of my friends and family are Russian speakers, and so is my father, who is also Jewish. On this YouTube channel I generally upload videos in Russian, but given the latest circumstances, this video is in English. Therefore, I can state with certainty that myself and my family are very much representative of those people that Putin is trying to protect from the Nazis in Ukraine. What needs to be said is that I'm nowhere near a politician nor a historian, but what I'm trying to do here is in the simplest manner to debunk some of the myths or straight up lies that Kremlin or Russian propaganda are trying to feed the world in order to justify the invasion of the Ukraine.
Похоже, нам с вами будет легче договориться, чем с этой шайкой наркоманов и неонацистов, которая засела в Киеве и взяла в заложники весь украинский народ.
Also, what is crucially important, down below in the video description section, you can see two links for donation. One is directly to Ukrainian armed forces and the other one is humanitarian help through Red Cross. Both links were verified multiple times, they have nothing to do with me, so please feel free to donate. Finally, please share this video with your friends so more of the international community can get to know the truth about what's going on in Ukraine. Yeah, that's it, and let's just jump straight to the first point, which is Ukraine is a Nazis or fascist run country. So for the past 8 years, the whole Russian media and Vladimir Putin himself keep talking about Nazis and fascists being in power in Ukraine. And that was also one of the reasons that Putin used to justify the invasion of the Ukraine. So what he's saying is that the Russian forces will come into Ukraine in order to protect the ordinary Ukrainians from the Nazis. Additionally, Putin made denazification as one of the requirements in order to stop the bloodshed in Ukraine. Well, this whole theory doesn't make too much sense. And to be more specific, it's a straight up lie. You see, in 2019, Vladimir Zelensky was elected as the president of Ukraine, and as you may know, Zelensky is Jewish. Moreover, some of his family were victims on Holocaust back in the day. Additionally, the first head of parliament, so Ukrainian prime minister under the Zelensky administration, was Vladimir Groisman, who is also Jewish. So in Putin's sick mind, two Jews have been leading the Nazi state. Moreover, the head of the Jewish community of the Ukraine, Jacob Doblaich, spoke up publicly asking Russians to stop the aggression against Ukraine, while Russians are basically claiming that they're coming to Ukraine in order to liberate him from the Nazis.
I live in Ukraine for 32 years. Believe you me, the Ukrainians, the Jewish community in Ukraine has blossomed in the last 30 years since the independence. We have Jewish schools, we have synagogues, the government is there for us, we're there for them, we're a part of the society. The denazification should be taking place in Russia, not in Ukraine. And the Nazi that should be denazified, his name is Vladimir Putin.
Finally, as I mentioned before, my father is also Jewish, and for the past 25 years he has managed to build a large and successful business in the Ukraine, employing hundreds of Ukrainians, and he's still right there with them, trying to support their families, trying to provide provision for Ukrainian army, and the only threat to my father's life and business right now are not the Nazis, but the so-called Russian liberators. Okay, so are there any Nazis in the Ukraine? Most likely, there are some small, marginal, right-wing extremist groups similar to any other European country, including Russia itself. So in reality, when Putin demands denazification of Ukraine, that really tells us he's not looking for the conflict resolution, simply because there is nothing to denazify, and this is just another excuse to continue with the bloodshed. Now on to the next point which Putin stated, and that is Ukraine doesn't exist. Well, yeah, this one even sounds weird. So basically, the point that Vladimir is trying to make is that Ukraine as a country, or Ukrainians as a nation, never really existed and they've been always part of Russia. So in Putin's 1-hour lecture about Ukrainian history, a couple of days before the invasion of the Ukraine, he made a point that Vladimir Lenin created Ukraine after the World War I or just when Soviet Union came together.
Итак, начну с того, что современная Украина целиком и полностью была создана Россией. Точнее, большевистской, коммунистической Россией. Этот процесс начался практически сразу после революции 1917 года. Причем Ленин и его соратники делали это весьма грубым по отношению к самой России способом. За счет отделения, отторжения от нее части ее собственных исторических территорий.
I mean, I don't even know where to start with that one, but let's just break it down into two parts. For a second, just for a second, let's assume that Putin is actually right, even though he's not. And let's say that Ukraine indeed came into existence in the early 20th century. So essentially, in Putin's mind, if a country was created after World War I, then it's not even a real country. It's just a piece of land with no culture, no history. You can go in, kill the civilians, basically wipe out the whole country, and that's okay. No, Vladimir, it's not. Otherwise, countries such as Poland, Finland, Austria, Hungary, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, you must be prepared because you're next. Because those countries were created or became independent also after World War I. Sorry, I just had a bit of collapse over there. Now, Ukrainians were not invented in the early 20th century. Look, we could have dived deep into Ukrainian history, but I don't think you're gonna find it too interesting. In order to keep the long story short, here is the picture posted by US Embassy in Kyiv. Essentially, Kyiv is 600 years older than Moscow, and Putin can build the highest skyscrapers in Moscow. He can repaint the Kremlin walls with even more red paint. He can get Lenin out of the Red Square. It doesn't matter, because up to this day, Kyiv remains the historical, cultural, and religious center of the whole region. And I'm sure even a lot of you who's watching this video didn't know that. But Putin knows it so well, and that is actually one of the real reasons why he decided to attack Ukraine. Because in his sick mind, the rebuild of the Russian Empire is impossible without the mother city of Kyiv. Now on to the next point. Putin is there to protect the Russian-speaking population of Ukraine. Oh man, this is my favorite. So back to my family story. My mom, absolutely lovely lady, is a Ukrainian speaker. My dad, who I already mentioned, also quite a nice guy, is a Russian speaker. And trust me, they have no problem getting along with each other. Well, I'm the living proof of that. By the way, they're divorced now, but once again, that had nothing, trust me, that had nothing to do with the language they speak. And that is the case for most of Ukrainian families, even though it may sound weird to you. So one person speaks Ukrainian, the other person speaks Russian, and they have no problem understanding each other. Moreover, I can bet you every single person living in Ukraine can understand Ukrainian and Russian. Now, do Russian speakers get discriminated in Ukraine? No. Even remotely? No. Look, I don't have the exact stats, but I believe that at least 50% of men and women fighting in Ukrainian armed forces are Russian speakers. So just think about it for a second. Russian speakers are fighting Russian army who came to protect them. It just doesn't make any sense. Now, once again, as Vladimir Putin pushes his theory out that Ukraine is a fake country, so we must also speak the fake language, well, Vladimir, you didn't do well on your research. In 1897, when Ukraine was still part of Russian Empire, Russian government, I want to highlight it, Russian government had the first public open census. And in that census, 76% of the population living across modern Ukrainian territories identified themselves as Ukrainians. But you may ask a question, how could they tell who's Ukrainian and who's not? Well, simple. You see, back in the day, they used to determine the nationality based on the language you speak. So 76% of Ukrainians used to speak Ukrainian, which is crazy if you think about it, because today I would say it's closer to 50-50. And you know why? Because in Ukraine you can speak any language you want and we don't discriminate on that. Now moving to the final point, that Russia only targets military infrastructure and not civilian objectives. At the time of filming this video, Ukraine has already reported thousands of civilian lives lost, including more than 100 children. I'm purposely not giving any specific numbers because the situation is changing every day, every hour, every minute. You know, it seems very odd to me that in 21st century, the second largest country in Europe, I mean land-wise, with the population over 40 million people, is being bombed, where there is not a single major city left that wasn't hit either by airstrike or rocket launch, and some may still say, oh, you know, those videos are fake, pre-recorded or staged. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave those videos, those horrible footages of Ukrainian cities being bombed. And I'm just hoping that everyone who's watching this clip is reasonable enough to understand what's going on in Ukraine and recognize the Russian aggression against the peaceful civilian people. Finally, what I wanted to say is thank you to all of the international community. And I'm not just talking about the Western governments, I'm talking about the ordinary people that reached out and offered their help. I'm talking about Polish people, people from Germany, Hungary, Moldova, Romania, everyone who reached out. Thank you very much. And I hope to see you soon in the peaceful Ukraine.
Уже штук 20 пролетіло. Не видно. Только что по телеге Киев.
Летит. Макс, пошли.
Какая жесть. Ребята, там,
Я именно сюда и заходил.
Третья больница, Мариуполь.